was a construction safety guy full-time, and we had an employee die of an overdose during my time. We had 2 employees die by suicide during my time there. I came across a document called the Vermont Social Autopsy Report. Broke down suicide and overdose data in a bunch of different ways. And it jumped off the page at me that in both the overdose section of the report and the suicide section of the report, that construction was at the top of the list on each side. We know that men are about 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women are. We know that veterans are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than any other demographic marker. And we know that the construction industry is made up primarily of men with a high percentage of veterans. So we can see why this problem is so pervasive, because all of these individual demographics, they are all huge demographics that make up the construction industry. This is a larger issue. It's not just kind of one-offs that are happening in my company. It's happening all over the state and all over the country. I brought this to my dad, who's the head of the Associated General Contractors, the largest construction organization in the state. And I said, we should really do something about this.
About 1.5 years ago, this guy walks in my office and said, "You should start worrying about drug overdoses on construction sites." Within a year, we had mailed out 30,000 doses of Narcan. I mailed this stuff out, 500 doses. The initial response was, "I'm not responsible for you. You do what you want to do, and I'll do what I want to do."
So there's that kind of pushback. We don't want this because we think it's going to set the wrong example. I think that's kind of flawed thinking. That's like in the construction industry, it's like saying, we're not going to give them a fall protection harness because we think it sends the wrong message, that we want them to fall off a roof. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
As it started to grow, that response went away, because all of a sudden we're dealing with a workforce that needs help. We're dealing with people in our communities that need help. We have saved 5 people on our job sites. We have saved 30 people across the state of Vermont, meaning your neighbor, your friend, your relative, your mom. I don't talk like a professional. Professionals out there are preaching. This is what you have to do. I think we're sharing. I think there's a big difference. Thank you guys again for being here.
Appreciate you guys. So that's my dad. My name's Reid. Everybody here been trained in first aid? Cool. If somebody cut their arm off at your house, would you use that first aid at your house? Right? It's not just work. It's not just work first aid, right? Whoever thought that somebody's going to cut their hand off? Whoever thought somebody was going to fall off a roof, right? We don't really think that it's going to happen. It just happens, and we got to be prepared for it, right? Okay, beautiful. So we're going to start with overdose prevention. 23% of opioid overdose deaths in Vermont were from the construction industry. So 1/4 basically of all overdose deaths in the state were from our peers, right? So we started by creating an overdose prevention training. These are the signs and symptoms that somebody might be dealing with addiction, signs and symptoms that somebody might be dealing with an overdose, and how to respond to an overdose, i.e., how to use Narcan. If you forget everything else after this class, everything else, remember 3 easy words when it comes to doing Narcan. Peel, place, press. This is just a little nasal applicator. This is going to shoot a mist. Peel, place, press firmly and swiftly. That's it. That's all of it right there. So many of the symptoms of an overdose are similar to life-threatening symptoms of other things. If there's a child on the ground that we think maybe got into some unknown powder, it's going to have no effect on the child. It's going to have no effect on someone who's suffering from a heart attack because they don't have opiates in their system, right? It's only going to affect an opiate overdose Just have the stuff available. Better to have and not need than need and not have.
Many hands make light work. The more eyes that we have on the problem, the less likely someone is to slip through the cracks. The more doses of Narcan we have in first aid kits and in glove compartments of trucks, the more people are prepared to save that random person on the side of the street. After we did this training, we were getting the questions about like, okay, so we know how to respond to this. What can we do about the co-occurring mental health issues or illnesses? So that led us to the next step of our of this whole thing, which was, okay, so let's start talking about crisis response and suicide prevention.
Now, look, Vermont suicide rate is 19 per 100,000. The construction suicide rate is 128.1 per 100,000. That's like, I'm not good at math, but let's call that 6 times higher, right? That's wild. 6 times more likely to die by suicide just because you work in construction. There's a negative stigma around talking about suicide and mental health. People don't do it. Some of the warning signs: withdrawal or social isolation and personality change. If we don't know our people, the people around us, our friends and family members, coworkers, whatever, if we don't know them more than just to say, hey, Reid, go jump in that loader, are we ever really going to notice any type of personality change, right? Are we going to notice that they've engaged in some type of social isolation, that they're not really acting like themselves anymore? It's going to be much harder to know those things, right? When we treat the people around us as complex people, more than just loader operators and ditch diggers, they talk to us and we talk to them. And that's kind of the biggest thing here when we're talking about suicide or overdose. We got to know the people around us.
We're not trying to teach anyone how to diagnose mental health issues. We're not teaching anyone how to become a drug recognition expert. There are experts for those things, but we are teaching people the very bare, essential necessities in how to recognize these potentially life-ending signs and symptoms in people that you care about.
Now, somebody just came up to you for whatever reason. You're a superintendent, you're an unofficial leader on the job site, you're a good friend, and they say, Reid, I'm thinking about hurting myself. I've been thinking about killing myself lately, and I need somebody to talk to. The correct answer isn't, let me call safety, I'll get back to you tomorrow about some of the resources that we got. You think that's making me feel like you really care about my problems? Not really. They're not even bigger than work, right?
Males are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than females. And one of the most pronounced reasons why professionals believe that men are more likely to die by suicide is because men are unlikely to talk to someone when they're facing an issue, when they're dealing with a crisis, when they're having a mental health issue. One of the major things that we try and do in the partnership is destigmatize these conversations.
Just like I gave you with Peel Place Press, I'm going to give you a couple little words for crisis response. See, ask, listen, get help. See, you need to see the people around you as people. You got to know them as people, right? Not just as the loader operator or whatever. We want to ask the question, the hardest question you'll ever ask somebody. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Is everything okay, right? Those are hard questions to ask when you actually are concerned. You have to ask this question. You have to ask. Because do men talk about their feelings? Do men come up and tell people that they're thinking about hurting themselves or killing themselves? Generally, no. We have to ask. And then we have to listen. You have to ask and you have to listen. Not solve the problem. You have to listen. Because sometimes people are acting funny because they just had their 3rd kid and they've been up 6 months straight and their wife's driving them crazy because she's not sleeping good, right? They're not thinking about hurting themselves. They're just not sleeping good. But sometimes they are. We have to listen to their answer, right? We have to listen to what they're saying. And in the end, if they need help, we got to get them help together. They respected you enough to answer your question thoughtfully and honestly. The least that we can do is reciprocate that respect by helping them get some help, right? See, ask, listen, get help. But I would say this is a tough conversation, a tough place to be. We got to just get down to brass tacks and ask the question, right?
If we talk about these problems enough and let people know that it's okay to not be okay and that there are resources out there and we know where to go, we can find help. If we continue to kind of reiterate those things and have these relationships in place before the emergency happens, we'll be able to respond more appropriately to it. The wrong time to recognize you need a bandage is after you cut your finger in the kitchen.
I know it sucks. Nobody likes talking about it. I hate talking about it, and it's what I get paid to do. It's tough, right? Especially when we're talking about it and we're thinking about Jay, who died from an overdose last year, or John, who died by suicide last year. We've lost some people, or our family members, our friends, we've lost those people. Hard conversation to have, I get it. We have to have hard conversations so they aren't hard to have anymore.
There's no shortage of resources and companies that are there to help. The thing that I realized when I started doing this, unfortunately, a lot of times these conversations or these trainings or whatever will happen between kind of like high-level company people. Those resources and those people and their message frequently isn't getting down to the end user, whoever that end user is, which is why I believe have found success, because I only do trainings for end users. I'm not training them as an employee of the company. I'm training them as an end user of Narcan or these suicide prevention resources or whatever. And every person, when they leave, is leaving with a box of Narcan and a gun lock and suicide prevention cards and overdose prevention cards.
Wow. Reid, thank you.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the initiative.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Absolutely. Happy to help.
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because that
Good.
is something
Good.
nobody
I
talks
get
about.
a lot of that on this. Yeah, it's
Probably the most important thing I heard all day.
Thank you. I'll remember. I'm gonna go tell him that.
There's no downside to what we're doing, and I don't think there's an end to what we're doing. This is going to be something that's on our radar, should be on everybody's radar for the coming future. And we just got to work together as a community to help those people in need.